It's hard to believe it's been 12 months since I purchased this 2002 Porsche 911 Carrera from a seller out of Florida. A lot of the issues that I discovered weren't disclosed, but I did buy the car sight unseen. And what I found later on was quite shocking. Years of neglect caused by clogged convertible top drains allowed water to accumulate inside the cabin long enough to cause this rust damage here. The passenger seat rails were completely fused together, and it left the mounting points as well as the floor pan itself completely rusted through. When I started this channel, I had no idea I would be teaching myself how to weld, but given the current market and the way the car prices are, and finding a fabricator or a welder that's willing to do this kind of work, I figured it would be cheaper and I'd be able to learn a skill that I could pass on to you guys. So here we are, part 3, welding a Porsche 911. Let's fix it.
All right, things are going swimmingly, as much as you can expect with really thin sheet metal. I've got my YesWelder down to about 0.9 millimeters on the really thin stuff, and then back up to 1.2 on the double layer stuff, as well as this reinforcement brace. I want to make sure that this brace gets welded back into this sheet metal, and it absolutely is. So that's nice and solid. I got a big blowout here, but I also had a big blowout here as well, or blow through. And I'm gonna grind this down and see what it looks like, but I think I got it filled up. And I'm also working on this area here. You can see that I've got a nice bead going, but it's not really a bead, right? I'm zap, 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 cool. Come back to it, zap, 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 zap. And then I have this right here to ensure that I'm not getting too hot. Like, see, this is still 83. That over there is 84 because those I just zapped. But over here should be around 72 to 75 because that's the ambient temperature in the garage. The trick that I've learned is to move around. And on some of the ones that have blowouts, on the tip of your nozzle here, you want to have a longer than usual lead coming out of that thing. Mainly because you want to zap it with a whole bunch of material to fill that hole. On some of the ones that you're just continuing the bead, it's up to you. You can go about a 1/2 inch out or a 1/4 inch out. This here is about a 1/2 inch. And you keep it about that and just let the feed drop the material into the hole. Don't overheat it. The way that you can tell whether or not you're overheating it is this rainbowing that you see here may be coming too far out. Now keep in mind, when you heat your metal too much, you'll make it very brittle. So you got to be careful. But just, use this technique. Zap it here, zap it there, zap it here, zap it there. Keep going until eventually you'll see they'll come together. Here especially, they'll come together. See, nice and solid. I'm going to keep going here. I'm getting to the thin stuff right here. I may have to go to 0.8, just enough to put a bead across that. And some shaping still needs to be done. I got some shaping to be done here before I can come up and zap weld that. So, got to be careful with all of that. All right, well, I'm going to keep going. I'm also using this steel brush to just because if I'm going to be, put the light on that, there. So if I'm going to be pushing the bead or the blob of material forward, I should take off all of this soot that builds up on the weld. That way I get a nice connection with the next bead. And you can see this is fisheye. This is what they call fisheye because there's a little divot in the middle because I'm doing tack welds and not a solid bead. A solid bead would be something like that going across because I'm not as concerned about this one because, as I mentioned, it's double sheet metal, so I can go a little hotter there. The arc is not that bright compared to a stick or a TIG welder, but it's still bad for your eyes. So be sure you don't look at it when you're recording, please. I've been learning new techniques too with the welding. For plug filling, you want to have a longer lead on this thing. And then for just normal welding on sheet metal, you want to keep it short and just zap, zap, zap. Connect the beads together. Little smoky fire. It's like it's just not making good contact too. I may have to check my ground. But then it just starts behaving itself. I'm not sure. And you see how hot it gets, and at that point you want to stop and move on to somewhere else where it's not that hot. Another blow through. All right, so I'll just take it. I'll try to fill that hole in right there. So I've got a nice long lead, and you want to take it from a weld and push the puddle towards it. Like that. Another blow through. You can see the rainbowing happening on the thinner metal. It's just par for the course, unfortunately. But it's a slow process. I think I've been welding off and on for the past couple hours. If you're patient, I think you can accomplish this no problem. So I'm gonna keep going, and then I'll circle back and I'll show you what's going on with my welds. All right, it is coming along. As you can see here, I've got this bead on the long side almost completely connected. I've got some pretty bad blow throughs here and some pretty bad ones there. Again, really thin metal. But I brought the bead over here across and then down to this cut. And I'm slowly building out pretty much all the beads now. As you can see, I know it doesn't look all that great. I think I may have a grounding problem because I have some splattering going on here. It's like it's almost not hot enough, so I may even need to crank it up. But you can see how thin it is and what it's doing to the metal. It's rainbowing it, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I just got to be really careful in what I do. But solid, man. My butt is not coming out of there, and I won't be needing my passenger to stop the car with their feet. All right, take a look at what we're doing now. I've ground down a little bit of the welding here as well as here so that I don't have big lumps of weld in my way when I'm trying to patch these holes up. I'm using a combination of my cutoff wheel along the edges like this, not down, but just skimming across the top and scalping it. There's a YouTuber that I follow named Garage Time Porsche Restoration, and he suggested that in order to reduce the warping, that if you just focus on the welds and scalp them, you reduce the amount of heat transfer to the metal itself, which makes sense. It's just pretty time consuming, and as you can see, it makes a pretty good mess. But I've got my copper and it's working. I'm using a copper backing here to help with this, but I have to get most of this done first before I start doing that, because I need to get under the car and start shaping some of these pieces. Like this is too low right here. In this area here needs a little bit more shaping. And I want to get my hands under there so that I can hold a piece of copper underneath some of these places here where it needs a backing to keep it from blowing out. And plus it also gives me I guess a foundation for a puddle to build, and then when it cools, it won't stick to the copper, it'll stick to the metal. So that's good.
All right, so I've got the majority of the welding done on this car. I would say about 85%. I have a few blowouts that I need to address, but I want to go underneath the car and take a look at what it looks like underneath and kind of assess where I'm at as far as, do I need to re-weld some spots? Did I get good clean welds through? Things like that. So I'm gonna go take a look underneath. If there's anything interesting, I'll come back and show you. Here we go.
All right, so the first thing that I noticed the moment that I took down my fireproof blanket is take a look at all of those burn marks on the fireproof blanket. That could have been really bad in a situation where you weren't protecting your car or your floor, and yeah, this would burn right through it. So I'm glad I spent the, I think it was $25 for this 4x6, and yeah, it saved. Look at those, see these close-up ones? There were a couple of times, and you can see that here, where the rubber burned back. And not only did it burn back, but you can see, let me turn this light on, but you can see that it actually burned, or caught fire, I should say. But take a look at the welds, man. They look really good. There's some cleanup that I need to do, obviously, down here. I've got some big gaping holes that I'll need to resolve. But after I scrape all this off with the wire wheel, it'll look a lot better. Some big gaping holes here. But the reason why I'm taking down this thing for right now is because I got to get a piece of copper in here to do these one-off welds where I got to fill these holes. So I need a piece of copper to back it as a backing plate to prevent blow through as much as possible. But overall, I mean, I really honestly can't complain. I mean, this thing is solid as a rock. So this thing is not going anywhere. So this is awesome. So I got some work to do. I got some grinding to do. I got to put a face mask on and clean up all this rubberized stuff. So let me get cleaned up and then I'll do some grinding. Wait, why would I get cleaned up if I'm going to do some grinding? Let me try that again. Let me get masked up and then I'll do some grinding. All right, and there. Yeah, you saw that I was struggling with that wire wheel, man. I tell you what, if you push down too hard on that thing, it will pull you, and you won't have much to say about it. Looks like the double layer here did not get welded, so I'll come back in and weld this here, but I don't think I really need to, except for more of a cosmetic reason. But you should be able to see the light coming through most of these gaps here as expected. I have a lot of work to do here in this area, but I've managed to wire wheel most, if not all, of that sooty stuff off, so you can see that I got really good penetration. It looks good, and I think it's gonna look really good once I finish grinding this down as much as I think I need to, and then reapplying the paint, the primer, the paint, and then the rubberized undercoating to make it look as OEM as possible. And I may even use some seam sealer depending on what I can do with this area right here, this gap right here. I may just put another piece and then weld, but it's very difficult to weld under the car because all of the embers and metal will be coming down on top of you. So I haven't figured out how I'm gonna do that. If you have any ideas, leave a comment down in the section below and help me out here. Tell me what I need to do in order to do this upside down safely, and my stupid watch is listening. I think I've got this going now. I've got the fireproof blanket out of the way. I'm gonna have to put it back here when I start welding, but again, like I said, I need to put a backing here in order to prevent the blowouts. I need to put some copper here, and then I'll use some copper here as well to get everything sealed up. So let's go ahead and get started on that.
All right, this is the fire blanket that was under the car, and you can take a look. I'm putting it in the trash so I can get all the ferrous metal off of it. But take a look why you need to use a fireproof blanket. Crazy, look at that. I mean, some of these were so hot that they burned right through. Look at these right here, all the way through. Jeez, crazy. Yeah, so always use a fire blanket. So here is the copper piece that I showed in a previous video. I got more of this, but what I did is I hammered it into an angle, and I'm gonna do more so that when I'm gonna clip it to a pair of vice grips or something. What I'd like to do is drill a couple of holes here on the end and attach some kind of metal wand so I can reach out with it and get some of these ones in the back. So I have to figure out how I'm gonna do that. But for right now, I think I can get away with just using the piece like this from underneath, and then I can hold it in place. Unfortunately, this copper is not magnetic, so I can't use a magnet to hold it in place. I gotta figure out how I can do that and hold it. I need a super magnet or something. But anyway, all right, so here's what I did. I just hammered it a little bit more to get it at an angle. That way I can get a better angle standing up. So what I wanna do is stick this right here and use it as a backer and start zapping and fill that in right there. And then while that's cooling down, I can come back here and do the same thing here and then here. Okay, I've got all of the major blow-throughs covered. I'll have to grind these down to see if I got them completely covered. And you can see here, all of those jaggedy openings have been filled in. I know it's ugly. This is what it's gonna look like after I grind down all these welds.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have it douse, not what I'm about, have your cloud, it be raining now, I keep making sound, go another round, I'm legend bound, can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. 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 Cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big boss, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top think they need replacement? Who's at the top think...
All right, I'm grinding a lot of the welds down. I'm using a combination of my angle grinder, as you saw in the time lapse, as well as my die grinder here, which does a really good job in some of these narrower spaces here in between these two risers. Especially this one here, you can't really get the grinder in there, so the die grinder, excuse me, you can't get the angle grinder in there, but I can certainly get the die grinder in there. And you can see all of the metal that's being grinded off, just landing on the floorboard, which is why I am wearing a respirator. One of the things to note here is this access port is plastic. I tried to weld it, and you can see that it just kind of melted away. So I'll probably use some seam sealer there just to close it up. Not much more I can do there. I like this one here. It's nice and flat, but I think I can go a little bit lower. I don't think it's ever gonna look, you know, OEM, not with my welds. But I hope in the future when somebody watches this video, they appreciate the work that I did. So I'm gonna keep grinding, clean up some of this mess, and I'll show you again what it looks like here in a few minutes. All right, be honest. What do you think? Too ambitious? Do I really need to worry about grinding it down to that level? I think it looks really good, but this is exhausting work. Hunched over your floorboard, trying to grind all this down, especially when you have large beads, you know, to fill in some of that thin metal. And what's interesting is that as I'm grinding away, I hear little popping sounds coming from this area. So I don't know what that means. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think that is. And also leave a comment below if you think that looks good and you would appreciate that. Or a flat grind like I'm doing here is good enough, and then throw some carpet on it and nobody will ever see. I don't know. I'm trying to make a name for myself, so I want to make sure that I do a really good job. But there is such a thing as overkill, and I may have hit that. So I don't know. It's a lot of grinding. Look at the pile of ferrous metal coming off this thing, so a lot of work. And this guy is a savior right here. This with the flap discs. If you guys don't have a 90-degree die grinder in your toolbox, you should really think about getting one because it does all kinds of things really well. It can polish, it can grind clearly, it can cut, sort of, not really. But in combination with my angle grinder, this tool is making, I'm not gonna say short work because I've been at this for about 90 minutes, but it is, you know. All right, I wrapped up the grinding underneath, and now what I've done is I got my shop light. You can see it, it's on my roller down there. Pointing it upwards so I can see the light peeking through the metal. So I can come in and mark it up and then weld it again on those particular spots. I know it's not gonna turn out on the camera, so I'm gonna turn the lights off in my shop and then you can see the light beaming through the little pinholes. It looks like starlight. Wow. You know, some of it, like this here, is on that access port. Some of them are drill holes, but others are pinholes in the welds. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna vacuum up all of this metal in here, clean it up so I can see better, and then I'm gonna mark it all up. And with the magic of video editing, you can see it when it's all done, but I hope you like my starlight. Okay, and there. I marked it up with a pink Sharpie. I can't find my red one, but I like pink. And you can see there's quite a bit. Some of them I put little arrows on there because that's indicating that it's underneath the weld, so I may have to do some grinding to get to that one. This one's gonna be interesting. I may have to take it down. There's a lot of little holes in it. I'm gonna grind this whole thing down and then plug those holes properly. All right, I think that's a good place to stop. We're making really good progress. I've managed to get all the welds ground down and I've identified all of the pinholes. So that's what we'll be doing in the next video, is welding up all of the remaining pinholes and then grinding it down and protecting our work, because we got to put another layer on top of this where the actual seat rails attach. That part is separate, and it was originally spot welded in, and I'll have to develop or come up with a different way of attaching that to the floor pan. For those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the subscribe button, thumbs up, spread the word, engage with me down below. For my loyal subscribers, thank you again. We'll see you next time on Yogi's Garage.
Make the microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie. I could truly be moody. I could have played the fucking Grinch in the movies. I've been a part-time shadow cat, part-time. That is not a guy that I would ever want to try to battle rap. Snap, crackle.